Hey everyone, I'm Paul, your host, and welcome to Genoa, Nevada. It is the oldest town in Nevada, and we're going to check it out today. It's known for a number of things, and I'm going to mention three things, and there's many more we're going to check out, but this will just get us started. First of all, it's the home of the Mormon Station, which was an original immigrant camp or trading post dating back to the 1850s. Secondly, it's the home of this guy named Snowshoe Thompson, who was famous for taking mail over the Sierra Nevada in the worst of winter conditions, and he would take the mail from here in Genoa up and over the Sierra Nevada to Placerville. And thirdly, it's known as the home to the oldest saloon in Nevada. One of the things that this place is known for, other than being the oldest saloon in Nevada, is that women would come in there and hang their brassieres on the ceiling. And the legend goes that back in the day, Raquel Welch, who was a movie star in I think the late 60s through the 70s, maybe 80s, she was kind of a Marilyn Monroe of that area, if you will. And she came in, they asked her to leave her bra. She said she would if they took down all the other ones. And apparently they did and put all the other ones in a safe. So if we can check those out, we're going to try to check those out. Apparently you have to pay to see the ones in the safe, but you can see Raquel Welch's brassiere on the ceiling, and if I can pay to see them, I will. They may not let me put a camera in there, but I'll tell you about it. So anyway, let's go into town and check it out. So back in the gold rush days in about 1849, of course, the immigrants were coming from the east, and this was one of the routes. It was called the Humboldt Trail. Now, those of us from California think of Humboldt as the northwest, but there was a Humboldt territory out in, well, what is now Nevada, but back then it was part of the Utah territory, and this was before Nevada existed. But in 1849, there was a trading post established right here, and right behind me, these are the Carson Mountains, and they would lead you over the Sierra Nevada. So this would have been considered the last stop before the immigrants had to make the trip over the Sierra Nevada. In 1849, it was just a makeshift little area. I don't know if it was here. I think it might have been somewhere just nearby. But it was in 1851 that a Mormon gentleman and 20 other Mormons established this area, and this was called the Morman Station. And this became a rather serious stop for the immigrants. And they would stop here and they would resupply. And a lot of times their oxen were completely exhausted from traveling across Nevada. It was very remote. There was nothing out there for hundreds of miles. And the oxen were just worn out and tired, and they would trade one fresh oxen for two tired oxen. And then at that time they would rejuvenate the tired oxen and then sell them to the next immigrants. But this was considered somewhat luxurious after what the immigrants had gone through to get through Nevada.
Unfortunately, in 1910, the original Mormon Station burned to the ground, and this replica park was built in 1947. This plaque gives you a nice map and shows you what you're going to see here. There's a lot of really cool old equipment in the Stockade. Some of it is original, like this log hauler. Log haulers were used to transport felled trees and lumber in the 1800s. This hauler is far smaller than the ones used by lumber companies in the Tahoe Basin, where old-growth timber cutting required larger equipment. This artifact was found here in the Carson Valley. Next up, we have a mountain wagon as was used in this area. It looks like one is unrestored and the other one is a restoration or a replica. But these wagons featured more suspension and bigger brakes than typical wagons of the era, so they were more suited for the rougher terrain of the Sierra Nevada. This sharpening stone was largely used to sharpen implements used in agriculture, such as these old hand plows, which were used with livestock back in the day. Then a fire hose cart, and finally a gristmill stone used to grind wheat and flour.
This large fenced-off area that I'm walking around in now is known as the Stockade. These fences were recreated. In the old days, they would have been a lot taller. I understand they would be 13 feet tall, and these are probably only 6 or 7 feet tall. But this is the area where they would have kept livestock, oxen, and there's up ahead here, there's an old wagon we're going to check out. Here's a really nice old wagon. This obviously looks like it was original. It appears to be quite heavy duty, as you can see. This would have hauled some heavy loads. And here's a plaque here where you can read some information on this.
I have to apologize because in this video you're going to hear me refer to this place as Genoa and Genoa, but for the record the preferred pronunciation is Genoa.
And here's another restored creation to represent the wagons of how the immigrants would have traveled. And here's a plaque showing the journey through Nevada and what it might have looked like. Right behind me this way is the museum. We're going to go there in a minute, but before we do that, I want to go through that fence in front of me over there and see what we got in the next yard.
This old chicken coop was built after the fire, sometime between the 1920s and 1940s, so therefore it could potentially be original. It was used by the people living on the property to raise chickens and sell eggs for additional income. Blacksmiths at Gray's would shoe horses, repair wagons, and build wheels. At the livery, a person could board their horse, purchase feed, or catch a stagecoach. There was tremendous demand for these services for much of the mid to late 1800s. Genoa, a town of about 350 residents, was home to 3 blacksmith shops and 3 liveries. This is the Arabalsaga Campbell House, completed in 1948, and where this stands today was once the White House Hotel, also known as Rice's Hotel. Throughout the late 1800s, the hotel was an integral part of the social life in Genoa. The White House boasted a fine dining room and bar and hosted many dances and parties. In 1885, it even became the site of the first roller skating rink in Genoa. By 1900, the town of Gardnerville had replaced Genoa as Carson Valley's commerce center. Hotels, stores, and liveries in Genoa closed, and buildings stood vacant. One Genoa couple saw a shuttered hotel, the White House Hotel, as the key to a better life for their family. Nels and Harriet Morrison purchased the old White House Hotel in June 1908. Built in 1865, the hotel had closed its doors around 1900. The Morrisons had no intention of becoming innkeepers. They bought the White House for its lumber. Nels and Harriet figured the 26-room hotel would provide enough material to build a new house for their family and a new blacksmith shop for Nels. Later in 1908, Nels used parts of the former hotel to build the structure that you see here, which is the blacksmith shop that he operated from 1908 until about 1918. When Nels' shop opened in 1908, Genoa's days as a transportation hub were long gone. Rather than repairing emigrant wagons or stagecoaches, much of Nels' work involved repairing large farm machinery, such as threshing machines and steam tractors. Other regular jobs included shoeing horses, forging branding irons, and mending various tools. Nels closed his blacksmith shop around 1918. That year, the Morrisons moved to California to work in the shipbuilding industry. After World War I came to an end in November of 1918, the booming shipbuilding industry slowed, and the Morrisons returned to Genoa. In 1920, they sold this property and purchased a ranch near Gardnerville. Over the next 80-plus years, families that owned this property used this building as a garage and a workshop. As time went by, the structure's history was forgotten, but now, of course, we remember it. Next up, we visit the old museum, which is intended to be a replica of the old training post, albeit without the false facade. It's a beautiful old building, and there's a docent inside who can answer questions. There's two famous characters that we need to talk about. One was Snowshoe Thompson, the other one was Hank Monk. John Snowshoe Thompson was actually Norwegian, and he knew how to ski, and he became famous for carrying mail from Genoa over to Placerville in the wintertime during the worst of conditions. An absolutely legendary man. Nobody else could match his prowess in the mountains in the wintertime. The docent informed me that the skis that were on display did belong to Snowshoe Thompson. However, he wasn't sure that they were the ones he used to travel the Sierra Nevada in the wintertime. Also on display was the cradle that he built for his son, Arthur. Unfortunately, he outlived his son by 2 years. The other character that I want to put the spotlight on briefly is a fellow by the name of Hank Monk. If Snowshoe Thompson was the hard man of the winter months, it was another guy, a stagecoach driver by the name of Hank Monk, who was the hero during the summertime. He was known for his crazy antics along with his skill in driving the coach. Once on a stage run to Placerville, Monk had Horace Greeley as his passenger. Greeley was afraid he would be late for a lecture, so he encouraged Monk to hurry. Obligingly, Monk put the whip to the horses. Careening wildly down the mountain, death seemed inevitable. Greeley later described the incident. The road was eaten into the side of the steep mountain, with a precipice of from 5 to 1,500 feet on one side, and as steep an eminence on the other. Yet along this mere shelf, with hardly a place where two meeting wagons could pass, the mail stage was driven just as fast as 4 wild horses could drive it. Other accounts report that Greeley had called to Monk indicating he was not in that much of a hurry, and Monk's rejoinder was, "Keep your seat, Horace. I'll get you there on time." That quote was later engraved on a watch and given to Monk by his California admirers. The Territorial Enterprise was Nevada's first printed newspaper. I won't continue to bore you with all the details of the museum, but if you've never seen a sausage stuffer, well, here's your opportunity. But all kidding aside, the museum is really quite wonderful, and it's a great way to learn all about the history of the area. And be sure to check the hours to make sure that the museum is open when you pass through the area. One of the most fun surprises during my visit to Genoa was checking out the Pink House. I stumbled upon it and started walking around in the outside and noticed the stage and the picnic tables and realized it was obviously a live music venue. Then a woman asked me what I was doing. I said I was just looking around, and then she invited me inside. I said I was alone and I really didn't want to sit down to a fancy dinner, but she said, "Oh, come on in anyway and check it out." So I did. Not only is the Pink House a beautiful place to visit today, it also has a very colorful history. It was built originally by John Reese, the fellow who started Morman Station, and then passed through a couple of hands. I'm going to put a link in the description so that you can read more about it. But it has a fascinating history. The house itself was actually moved, and most recently now the Pink House is a restaurant, and it's very, very nice. It serves pizza and other delicacies, and they have live music through the long weekend, and it's definitely a worthwhile visit and a place where you can sit down with a group of friends and have a meal and enjoy the beautiful history of this building. Again, I'm not going to go too deeply into the history of this place right here because we don't have the time, but please do check the links below in the description and read more about the Pink House. It truly is amazing. And another thing, if you do plan to visit, please do check on their website and make sure that their hours are current and whatnot, because you know how it is with these places in these small towns. You just never know how things are going and how it might affect their hours going forward. The Pink House has a wonderful website, and I'm going to read you a little blurb just to give you an idea what's going on there. The Reese Johnson Virgin House, more commonly known to locals as the Pink House, stands at the center of town in historic Genoa, Nevada. Listed in the National Register of Historic Places for its association with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of our history, the Pink House has hosted and borne witness to significant events in Genoa and Nevada's past. It is also recognized for its architectural significance as an example of the Gothic revival style that was popular in the 19th century. The Pink House has housed many interesting characters and played different roles throughout the years. Its story plays out like a scene from a Western drama, providing a wealth of insight into the life and times of old Genoa. The Pink House is nearly as old as Genoa itself, and is certainly one of the oldest surviving buildings in Nevada. Genoa became Nevada's first non-native permanent settlement when John Reese of Salt Lake City established it as a trading post for gold rush pioneers in 1851. Reese's business and land holdings grew, and he expanded his operation to include a sawmill and a grist mill. In 1855, Reese built the Pink House next to his grist mill, thus commencing the story of this treasured landmark. The house wasn't always pink. That came later in about 1870 under the ownership of J.R. Johnson, but you can read more about that on the website. I've just read you a fraction of what's there. Right across the street from the Pink House is the Kinsey House. The Kinsey House is Genoa's first two-story brick mansion. Stephen Kinsey built the house for his bride in 1855-56. Kinsey was the editor of the first newspaper in Genoa, which was handwritten. This site was the third land claim in Nevada. It was a site of elegant socials and the Genoa Seminary for young ladies in the late 1800s. It's not open to the public, but you can admire it from afar, as I did. If you have the time, there are a few other old places to check out in the area that are really nice. They're also not open to the public, but you can still enjoy walking around and checking things out. I had a lot of fun looking at the old buildings. Now it's time to head back downtown. And here's the Genoa Country Store, where you find all the modern conveniences that you might imagine. This is Nevada's oldest saloon, and don't worry, we'll be back here at the end of our trip. This is the Town of Genoa Information Center. Now it's all psyched to check it out, and the sign said open, but alas, it was locked. The town hall is looking pretty well shuttered in this late afternoon weekday in December. The antique shop was looking pretty rustic. There's a beautiful old wagon out in front and an open sign that I think stays the same 24/7. I didn't go around the back on this trip. Maybe next time. This is a great old historical building called the Douglas Lodge. It was established in 1868 and was obviously served as a lodge, but it was also a general merchandise store, as you can see here. Around Genoa, you'll see a lot of references to Douglas. And as it turns out, Genoa is located in Douglas County, Nevada. Very cool history to this old building. Lillian Virgin Finnegan is an icon in Genoa. She's the originator of the Genoa candy dance, and she actually lived in the Pink House. In 1919, when the citizens of Genoa wanted streetlights, Lillian suggested a dance and a midnight supper featuring homemade candy as an incentive for a good turnout. Lillian enlisted the help of the ladies in Genoa to make candy, which was the highlight of the event. The success of the event brought streetlights. The tradition of the candy dance carries on today in September of every year. Now it's time to head on to the more bougie shopping district in Genoa, and this is a Cusco alpaca Peru store. Presumably they offer woolen goods there, but not sure. And next door is a bakery, and outside, of course, is beautiful seating. Continuing down the way, there's a bunch of little shops there, including a salon and some other touristy shops that are worth checking out if you have the time. This is a totally different feel for Genoa, but it just makes the whole experience that much better because there's so much to offer here in this little tiny town. It won't surprise you to hear that Genoa was a stop for the Pony Express, and there are markers around town to celebrate that. This is a marker for the southern route of the Lincoln Highway, and be sure to check out my video on the northern route. This is the volunteer fire department in Genoa. It's nice to know this here. One rumor says that this place used to be an old cat house, and that's where the fire of 1910 originally started, but I don't know if that's true or not. This is a California-Nevada state line marker, and apparently it was a few miles away previously, and then it was corrected in 1873 and placed here. Here's another Pony Express plaque. A lot of people don't realize that the Pony Express only lasted for about 18 months. Once the telegraph came into play, the Pony Express was obsolete. One of my big goals on this trip was to visit the courthouse and the old jail in there. Unfortunately, due to the fact that it was wintertime, weekday, and late in the day, the courthouse was closed and I was unable to visit. But the Hangin Tree is open 24/7.
All right, folks, behind me here is the Hangin Tree in Genoa. So in 1897, a fellow by the name of Adam Uber got in a bar fight and killed a man. And he was taken to the courthouse jail, and a group of guys, lynchers, broke in the jail, held the sheriff or whoever was in charge of the jail at gunpoint, busted this guy out, took him down here and hung him here. And they hung him up alive and they said, you've got 1 minute to say what you want to say. And I guess he tried to put a curse on them. He said anybody involved in this lynching is going to have a curse for 7 generations. And of course the joke was that in Genoa after that, people blamed all the bad things that happened on the curse. Of course that had nothing to do with it, but it was considered a very brutal murder. At the time it was considered a very black event in Nevada, and some said it was the worst event that had happened in Nevada. And they tried to catch these guys who were responsible for it, and all of them just was, mum's the word, they just kept silent. So nobody was ever caught and charged with the crime. This is just east of town. Town is that away, and you can see the road there. And out here is this beautiful valley. And behind me over here, you can see a bunch of cattle grazing. It's really a beautiful area. Great place to visit. Probably not a great place to get lynched, but certainly a wonderful place to check out. All right, folks, we're gonna visit what is in some circles considered the most popular attraction in Genoa, and that's the old bar. How are you guys doing? Yeah, good.
Your loss is I wish I didn't do that. Hello.
Hi.
So what can I get?
Could I get Lagunitas? Like yeah. So where's the brazier?
Right there. So you're going to see the canteen right there and look up.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's from Raquel Welch?
Yes, sir. It was when she came in and all the bras were taken down. The safe is over there that they were put in. And the saying goes, you can go ahead and take a peek, but you got to leave a donation.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
Peace out, guys.
No visit to an old bar is complete without visiting the bathroom.
All right.
What's your name?
I'm Candy.
Candy, like the candy dance.
Yeah.
Want to give you this? I looked in the safe, so that covers the 2 beers and a tip for you in the safe. Is that good?
This is too much.
No, it's not.
Oh my God.
I really
so
appreciate
much.
you,
Thank
Candy.
you. I appreciate you.
Have a great
That's
night.
awful kind of you.
And I'll be back.
Maybe I'll see myself on TV one day.
I'll put Candy in the description. You can find it on YouTube.
God. Okay, I'll watch for it.
Okay, bye-bye.
But put Genoa Bar so I can find it too. Genoa Bar in the description. Genoa Bar Candy.
Okay.
With an eye. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a great
Well, thank you for coming along on this great trip to Genoa. It was pretty awesome. Had a really great time. Hope you did too, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching.